Our city council wanted us to develop a diversion plan from landfill. And so as part of that process, we are looking at ways in which we can increase the amount of materials that are diverted from landfill through composting and other recycling projects. And this food waste organics composting pilot will be a good way in which we can take material currently going to the landfill and put it into a product for beneficial use through the use of compost. Almost a third of the waste that is disposed of in Fayetteville currently could be composted. And so this pilot will enable us to look at a system in which we could start focusing on diverting that material. And this is another opportunity that the city feels can be explored to expand our recycling programs through composting and divert these extra materials away from the landfill and make a product at the same time that is beneficial to our residents and our customers here in Fayetteville, that they could utilize back in their own yards with their own plants and be a beneficial product to our environment.
We have a unique process that we're employing throughout this pilot to use a unique type of composting which helps to speed up the process and mitigate odors, etc. during the operation. Yeah, typically when you're just composting yard waste, you have a very high carbon content in there. If you think about a lot of leaves, twigs, and sticks, etc. So that can make for a composting process that takes significant time. Now, when you factor in something and add food waste, which is very putrescible, it's got a lot of moisture to it. Fruits, vegetables contain a lot of sugars, and it has nitrogen in it too. So basically, adding that to a pile of yard waste is adding a lot more food and a lot more energy to that pile. So not only do you end up with a compost with a much higher nutrient value at the end, which is good for end users, also it speeds up the process because there's a lot more energy in there, a lot more food that the bacteria can utilize and multiply more rapidly. So you can basically shorten the composting time frame with just straight yard waste may take 4 to 5 months. With food waste included, we can shorten that down to about 8 weeks.
They'll take the findings from this pilot program based off of weight, and the goal is to increase diversion as much as what we can. So if it works out beneficial to go residential with it, then that'll be something that's considered at the end of the study. The weights at every location so far have increased, so participation's been pretty good. We've been fortunate enough to use what we already had on hand. All of our composting equipment was already available, and we've just utilized trucks that we already had to use for collections.
I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the type of program that people in Fayetteville can be proud of as a community. I think that the community of Fayetteville likes to think of itself as progressive. It's kind of the right thing to do as we have a paradigm shift about reducing all the waste that we as a culture generate. It's just one more step in the right direction.
When the city got involved, we were doing more plate scrapings, so we were producing way more compost. And we made a nice system for that with buckets, and it actually was hard at first, but then it got to be way more streamlined. The kitchen staff already had a nice grasp on what to do, but bringing in the plate scrapings really, doubled the compost, and it made our servers aware of what they need to be doing. And it actually became very easy because you can easily scrape into a trash can or into a compost bucket. And then, every 2 hours, somebody takes out the compost bucket. And we made that to be the front of house server. The servers did that. So it was actually really not that hard to implement. I think the easier it is for the employee to deal with, the easier and better it is going to be for the city to getting clean product.
We would love to see this system work efficiently and reduce any possibilities of odors that would lead to complaints from the public. So we could incorporate a system citywide in the future to gather and divert these materials from the landfill, but not create a nuisance for our public. So when we conducted the pilot, we learned a lot of different things that was beneficial for us. We were able to divert 69.3 tons of material. Operationally, we learned some things that will help us as we expand into a full citywide program. The participants had some feedback for us that was positive and something that we can learn more about working with them and use that information and knowledge to develop a citywide program that in the future will be beneficial to the city.